The business end of the football season is finally upon us. Bayern Munich is still alive in the Champions League through to the quarterfinals, and they're sitting on top of the Bundesliga. At the moment, it's the March international break. Let's take a look at the season so far, provide a state of the season address, rate how the players have done, rate how the coach has done, offer up some predictions, and look at the Bundesliga as a whole. I'm excited. Let's jump into it and roll that intro music. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Always Bayern Chelsea show. This is the 77th edition of the show. You just got me here today. It's Danny. I'm coming in with a state of the season address for Bayern Munich during the March international break. And our usual show is me and Jim talking about both Bayern Munich and Chelsea. Jim's the Chelsea fan, but this episode right here is specifically about Bayern Munich and their season so far, the 2024-2025 season. This is a video episode, so go ahead, check it out on the YouTube channel. Subscribe because we just dropped our 100 subscriber special. Comment on that video and subscribe to be a part of that giveaway. And yeah, without further ado, let's just get going. We got a lot to talk about. The season is well on its way, obviously. We're all the way into the month of March already. The sun is shining right now here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm looking out my window, and yeah, spring is upon us, and with that, it is, like I said, the business end of the football season. Trophies are about to be won or lost, and things are heating up in the best possible way. So, let's start off just by talking about how Bayern Munich has done so far this season. We'll start with the Bundesliga. They are still atop the table with 62 points. Their record in the Bundesliga is 19 wins, 5 draws, and 2 losses. That puts them 6 points ahead of second place Bayer Leverkusen. And up until the last couple weeks, it looked like it was as sure of a thing as possible that Bayern Munich would be regaining that trophy in the Bundesliga after Leverkusen won it last year. But hold on, folks, because things might not be as sure as they seemed. Bayern Munich just scuffled and could not beat two bottom table teams, Bochum a couple weeks ago and Union Berlin with their last match. Would have been last weekend here before the international break. Drawing against Berlin and losing to Bochum 2-3. It sucked, I'm not going to lie. Those were two poor matches, but up until then, Bayern Munich has looked dynamite in the Bundesliga, in terms of results at least. Not every match was a stellar performance, that's for sure, but Bayern was getting results really all over the place. And, of course, Bayer Leverkusen, although they did beat Stuttgart in stoppage time and came down from 3-1 last week, for the majority of the season, they have not had that black magic lightning in a bottle that we saw them have last season. So, it looks like Bayern's going to win the league, or maybe another way to put it is it's Bayern's league to lose still. However, like I said, it's not as sure as it was because Bayern was kind of starting to rest some guys. Vincent Kompany finally figured out that he could rotate some guys in the Bundesliga and had an unfortunate match against Bochum, right, a few weeks ago. João Palhinha's red card, Serge Gnabry missed a penalty. Up until then, things were looking good in that match, and then we kind of blew it. And then against Union Berlin, young keeper Jonas Erbig filling in for the injured Manuel Neuer had a bad mistake to essentially level that game at the end at 1-1. So a little bit of unluckiness, and as I mentioned, Leverkusen kind of got lucky at the end of that Stuttgart match. And here we are, 6 points ahead is still good enough, I think, for Bayern Munich in the league, but they're not going to be able to just put the league behind them and focus on the Champions League. Speaking of the Champions League, Bayern Munich is into the quarterfinals against Inter Milan, which will be a tough matchup. Maybe I'll talk a little bit more about that, but Milan is a solid side. Very good defense, very good midfield. They like to play the ball through the middle. They like to strike off of counters, kind of set up in that low to mid block, which has given Bayern problems throughout the season. Bundesliga, Champions League, we've seen Bayern struggle against those types of blocks, but I do think that Bayern Munich has the firepower to compete with Milan, and if they put some goals away early, especially in that first leg at home, they might have what it takes. So we'll get to complete predictions later in the video. Stick around for that, of course. But Bayern is into the quarterfinals there after beating Leverkusen 5-0 in aggregate over 2 legs in the round of 16. And those 2 performances, specifically the first performance, but overall, between those 2 legs, I think that was Bayern's best performance of the season so far. So maybe heating up at the right time, who knows? But if they can play with that sort of dedication and determination as the season goes on here, I think they'll be okay. And then the last thing to mention would be the DFB Pokal, where Bayern Munich was eliminated by Bayer Leverkusen in the round of 16. Hey, that was even before the last state of the season, all the way back in the winter pause. So talked about that one in more detail there, so maybe go back and watch our past couple state of the season addresses. Did one in October, November, and during the winter pause. I might have even done one earlier in the year, but hey, let's focus on the present right now. But yeah, that was a unfortunate loss in the Pokal. Neuer got a red card super early on, and Bayern somehow was still the better team, better than Leverkusen with 10 men in that one, but ended up losing 1-0. So as far as the season goes as a whole, I think the number one thing you can look at is this team improving from last year? And I think the answer is yes. So under Vincent Kompany, there has certainly been some ups and some downs, but I do like the overall approach and style that Bayern is playing. I think they're getting back to that kind of high-flying, attacking brand of football that Bayern Munich has been known for over the last few years and is best at, especially with this certain squad and the level of talent that this squad has. I think that the way they were playing last year under Thomas Tuchel wasn't utilizing that talent to its highest extent. I do think Tuchel is a good tournament coach, as we especially saw during that fun UCL run last year, but I don't think he's the right coach for Bayern Munich going forward. And Vincent Kompany certainly has some tactical naivety, and I think he could do better in some aspects, namely in terms of rotation. He's running certain guys into the ground, and we're at this point in the season where you really need your best guys to be fit, and a lot of them really aren't. I mean, the center backs, he played Kim Min-jae and Diet Upamecano every minute of every match, it seemed like, when he really didn't have to, especially because he had a guy like Eric Dyer back there, ready to step in and be reliable. So, the same could be said about Kimmich. Kimmich has been ran into the ground. Musiala ran into the ground. Kane ran into the ground, especially when you have a guy like Muller, who's been on the bench, ready to play. So some things I haven't been super fond of with Kompany, but, and this is a big but, I think he is an improvement from last year overall. Like I said, I love the style of football he plays. And the other thing that I think is a must mention when talking about Kompany is the players love him. And, it's, I don't know, it's maybe like corny, or you would think that this type of thing doesn't matter in football, but he really is bringing the vibes up. And in terms of, making a run deep into the season, I think that actually does matter, because everybody seems to be on board and seems to be bought into his philosophy, bought into his game plan. Bayern is such a talented team that obviously, they have a lot of depth, and some matches you're going to have good players on the bench. And everybody seems to be happy with their role on the team and seems to be bought into Kompany's philosophy. He doesn't hang players out to dry in front of the media. I think he's very good overall at dealing with the media. He kind of handles things internally, which I like. Granted, as a fan, his press conferences are so boring. He gives all these boilerplate answers, but that actually might be better for the team. Like I said, handling things behind closed doors. He seems very professional. The board members seem to love him. The old guard, Uli Hoeneß and KHR, seem to love him as well. So I think he, just has the vibe up, and he has a good spirit around this team. I mean, you're getting extensions from guys like Davies, Musiala, Kimmich, and these guys want to know that the team is going to be putting their right foot forward and improving and competitive in a sporting aspect going forward. And a lot of these guys love Kompany. And I mean, Kimmich wanted to know the Kompany was going to be around in his contract negotiations. We saw a story break recently about that, and I'm sure the same with Musiala and Davies. So, like I said, Kompany is really turning around the careers or the seasons of some guys like Davies and like Kimmich. So, yeah, I mean, overall, I'm happy with how Kompany's done things. Again, there are certainly some holes in this team. We see the attack look pretty stale quite often, especially that left wing position. I'm looking at Kingsley Coman, Serge Gnabry, Leroy Sané at times, although I do think Sané is probably the best of the bunch. We just see them struggle to create. A lot of times we see them struggle to break down low blocks, and that certainly is a problem with the attack. It's probably partially a problem with Kompany's tactics, so there are some problems there, and we do see defensive lapses at times. We see defensive mistakes that lead to goals. Yeah, certainly some highs and lows. I do think that there is a chance that they could be peaking at the right time just because of how we saw them play against Leverkusen in the UCL. I mean, wow, that was both legs, just full on through and through team performances. So I really loved what I saw from the guys there. I loved what I saw against Stuttgart, against Frankfurt in the Bundesliga in terms of, yeah, just the team playing together and really clicking. When this team is firing on all cylinders, they're, I don't want to say unbeatable, but I do think they can beat anybody when they're firing on all cylinders and clicking. That being said, yeah, there's been highs and lows. So there's been times where it looks like almost anybody can beat Bayern. So I don't want to just go out there and say we're the best of the best, but when we're playing our best, you know, that Leipzig match at the end of the Hinrunde there, man, like we look really good. So yeah, those are kind of just some of the overall highs and lows and pros and cons of what I've seen out of this team so far this season. You know, I think the next thing I want to bring up here is just some of the key players for Bayern Munich, and I'm going to go through and give a comprehensive review and rate every single player on a scale of 1 to 10 in just a bit here, but a few shout outs to mention in terms of leaders in the goals and assists category. Harry Kane sitting at top with 43 goals and assists. The man is continuing his monster run of form really since coming to Bavaria, since coming to Munich last year. The man has been completely unstoppable. He is on a Ballon d'Or campaign, I would say. Certainly that award is all about trophies, right? It's not actually the MVP in the soccer world award. It's really about how many trophies you win. But if Bayern can scrape together, a Bundesliga, a Champions League, a Club World Cup, or some sort of combination of those, I think Harry Kane is, at least in my mind, should be the rightful winner of the award. But you know how the PR works in the soccer world against Bayern Munich, so I'm not going to say he would win the award, but my point is Harry Kane is one of, if not the best players in the world right now. I consider him the best player in the world because of how much he does for the team: offense, defense, facilitation, build up. His vision is incredible. His ability to run and track back and just do it all, and still score outrageous amounts of goals, right? Like, I think he had the most goals in the world last year, maybe tied with Mbappe, but Kane does it all. And then you have Michael Olise. I just wanted to make sure I got that right, with 25 goals and assists for Bayern Munich this year. Absolutely incredible season for Michael Olise, I would say, in his inaugural season with Bayern Munich. He's exceeding expectations. I'll talk more about him when I go through the player ratings, but yeah, great season so far from Olise. Jamal Musiala up there as well with 24 goals and assists. A really good season from Musiala as well. Just signing that big extension, happy about that. Other key players, we'll go through it here with the comprehensive ratings for the team, but, Joshua Kimmich, Alphonso Davies, Dayot Upamecano, those would probably be my other 3 star players for the team right now. Yeah, so let's go through and rate some players next, starting with the keepers. But I guess I should say this is, a scale of 1 to 10, 5 kind of being average, and, there's some players here that I can't quite rate, starting with Sven Ulreich. I can't rate him. He has not played enough for me to really give a fair rating for him. But we'll move on to Daniel Peretz, who I'm giving a 5 out of 10. Peretz had a moment earlier in the season when Neuer was injured and Peretz had to play. Ulreich was also dealing with some stuff, whether that be injuries or personal issues. I'm not exactly sure. The club was not super outright about that situation, but Peretz stepped in and filled Neuer's shoes, I guess as best as he could at this point. He wasn't anything special. He did not look extremely confident out there, and obviously you don't expect anybody to fill Neuer's shoes, but you have somebody like Urbig, who I'm giving a 7 out of 10, because I thought he did a little bit better of a job, even though he did make that horrible mistake against Union Berlin in the Bundesliga a few weeks ago. Urbig was great in the Champions League. Against Bochum, I don't think any of those goals were his fault, and in the Champions League, he put up 2 clean sheets against Leverkusen, so, Urbig has done a solid job, and he's just looked the part a little bit better than maybe Peretz. I would say Urbig has been more confident, and he's played a little bit more, I guess I could say, like Neuer. Nobody is like Neuer, truthfully, but Urbig has kind of stepped into that role. I just felt a little bit better. And then speaking of Neuer, I'm giving him a 7 out of 10. Certainly not Neuer's best season, but he's done a solid job, I think. He had a few mistakes earlier in the year, namely that one against Leverkusen in the Pokal, which was a big blow. But outside of that, a lot of the goals the team score on Bayern just aren't really the keeper's fault, because there's so much pressure on the back line to be so high up in the pitch and do so much where, a long ball cuts through the entire back line and you're just faced with the one-on-one as the keeper, and what are you supposed to do there? So, up until this point in the season, again, all these ratings are going to be from the beginning of the season until now, which is March. Neuer's getting a 7. Moving on to the defense. We're going to start here with Sacha Boey. I'm just consulting my notes here, my trusty handwritten notes on this notepad. Chicken scratch, but it gets the job done. Sacha Boey, I'm giving a 5 out of 10. Boey has unfortunately spent the season injured, pretty much the whole season the man's been injured. Which is unfortunate because he spent a lot of last season injured as well, coming over to Bayern in that winter transfer. As a right back, it was kind of a panic move. I shouldn't even say kind of. It was definitely a panic move for Bayern Munich. He's not somebody who has fit in super well so far at his time in the club. I think he's been all right when he's played. I don't have a lot of complaints about his playing so far, but he certainly... he has not proven that he should be the starting right back. I think that job will go to Stanisic or Leimer. Even Rafa Guerreiro has played there this year. But yeah, we'll kind of move up the list here with Rafa Guerreiro next. I'm giving him a 6 out of 10. Guerreiro has had an all right season. He's been a good utility guy, and he's contributed to the attack, to the offense very well, but he's oftentimes had to play left back for some injured players. He's played right back at times, and I think at this point in Guerreiro's career, he's not the best defender. He's certainly not physical. He's not always the best with his positioning, but he is such a good utility guy. Like, he can play defense, he can play midfield, he could maybe play on the wing. Tuchel used him as a left wing at one point last year, but Rafa Guerreiro, he has been a bit of a defensive liability, so I'm sticking with a 6 for Guerreiro. Next up I have Hiroki Ito, giving him a 7 out of 10. Ito has been injured for most of the year as well, and maybe I'll just lump Josip Stanisic in there as well, because I'm also giving Stanisic a 7 out of 10. Stanisic can play right back. He can play center back. He can even play left back. Hiroki Ito can play left back, really, or left center back. Ito has played less than Stanisic, but has been solid when he's been called upon. And same with Stanisic. Neither of these guys have really truly blown me away when they've played, but both of them have been incredibly solid. And that's also not easy to do when you've been injured for long stretches of time. Just coming in seamlessly and doing your job well. It makes me hopeful for both of these guys going forward. I think Stanisic really could be that starting right back. Stanisic, a relatively young guy, was on loan last season with Bayer Leverkusen. He's back now, and like I said, I've enjoyed seeing him play. He makes good runs. He's defensively solid. He's not bad on the ball either. Hiroki Ito, I think he's a solid defender. He's obviously not as quick as somebody like Alphonso Davies on that left-hand side, but Ito has shown his positional flexibility, and like I said, just does what he needs to do when he's called upon. So these are both great guys to have on your squad. Next up, we'll start talking about some center backs. I have Kim Min-jae at a 7. And it's tough for me to give Kim an accurate rating because, for one, he's been dealing with Achilles tendonitis for the longest time. Vincent Kompany has not done a good job of rotating, especially at the center back position. So Kim has played almost every match along with Upamecano, and Kompany just asks so much of his center backs. He has them play on the ball a lot. He has them push up very, very far up the pitch and run a lot. So it's not easy. And Kim has been solid for the most part, especially in the Bundesliga. We just see Kim prone to mistakes, and because of how the line is set up, oftentimes Kim's mistakes will lead to goals. So, you have somebody like Kim Min-jae who is very aggressive. I don't think he, aggressive positionally, I should say. I don't think he has quite adapted to the pace of the Bundesliga. The Bundesliga is such a fast league, and I don't think he's quite adapted to that pace. I think a lot of times he runs forward too far and a long ball gets past him, or somebody on the ball just burns him and gets a free shot on goal. So I think Kim needs to work on his positioning. But I think, again, he's asked a lot, and overall he's been solid. Eric Dyer now, I'm giving an 8 out of 10. Eric Dyer, it blows me away how Vincent Kompany just refused to use Dyer for so much of the season. I think he's finally realizing right now that Eric Dyer can be a dependable backup, and dependable is the best word I can think of to describe Eric Dyer. He's been the ultimate team player, the ultimate teammate and reliable guy who you can call upon when players get injured, to just come in there and do a good job at that center back role. He's not as fast as Upa or Kim for sure, but Dyer is just such a good communicator and such a good leader on the back line that I really do feel just safe with him back there, I think is a good way to put it. Moving on now to Diet Upamecano. Given Upamecano a 9. I think it's just been such a solid season from Upamecano. Again, same thing I said about Kim with how much Kompany asks about these center backs, asks them to do, asks them to run, asks them to just position themselves. And Upamecano has really turned himself into the leader on that back line. I think he could communicate a little bit better, and we still do see some mistakes from him from time to time. So not a perfect season, but almost a perfect season, and he has put in some really clutch performances, specifically against Leverkusen in big matches, and in the past we've seen him make some mistakes. Maybe these words will come back to bite me. Who knows? Maybe later on in the year we'll see a mistake from him as he's been prone to in the past, but as of right now I'm giving him a 9. And then we have Alphonso Davies, who I'm also giving a 9. Alphonso Davies at the left back position has been a completely rejuvenated player under Vincent Kompany this season. Really one of the most important players on the team. in every way. Defending, offensively, obviously Kompany loves to use Davies as part of the attack on that left side. He inverts so far up, and he is just such an influential part of the attack and the build-up. And Davies also this season has been such a solid defender, whereas in the past I think he wouldn't always hustle to get back on defense. He would kind of rely on his pace a little bit too much at times. And right now he just seems so much more mature as a player, and he's really growing into the player that he can be, and it's just a blessing and a joy to have Alphonso Davies on this team. So I can't say enough good things about the turnaround from last season for Alphonso Davies to this season. And I guess lastly, I should lump Konrad Laimer in with the defense because he's played primarily as a right back this year, although his natural position is a left back. His natural position is a midfielder. Almost slipped there. But yes, Konrad Laimer has played right back this season for Bayern Munich, filling in for some injured players, which is not easy to do. I'm giving Laimer a 7.5. He struggles positionally sometimes. He, will be a little bit too aggressive in his positioning, but it seems like that is natural almost because he is a midfielder, as I said, moonlighting as a right back. So, Konrad Laimer is doing a great job there. He is, truly playing with a lot of heart and spirit every single match. The man runs, 90 minutes straight, horse lungs, 3 lungs, Konrad Laimer, whatever you want to call this guy. He's super fun to watch because he, like I said, always plays with so much spirit, and you need guys like him. You really do. Konrad Laimer, maybe one of my favorite players to watch just because of how intense he is. He really gets under people's skin too. I think you need a guy like that. He's always he's always right in the action. He's chirping. He's everywhere at once on the pitch. You need guys like Laimer. Now, onto the midfield. João Palhinha, I'm giving him a 5. It's been a disappointing season for João Palhinha. Unfortunately, coming over to Bayern Munich, Thomas Tuchel wanted him as that 6, that kind of destroyer, and he just doesn't really fit into Vincent Kompany's system. Was promised a transfer under Thomas Tuchel, so Bayern made good on that promise, even though he maybe isn't quite right, as I said, for Vincent Kompany. And João Palhinha has been dealing with a lot of injuries, illnesses, everything under the sun. I feel bad for the guy because I think he is a good guy. I think he wants to give it his all for Bayern, but unfortunately, things just haven't worked out so far this season. I'm not saying they could never work out by any means. I'm not saying that. So right now I'm giving him a 5 with hopefully a lot of room to improve. And Alexander Pavlovic, I'm giving him a 7. He started off the season so hot. He was the preferred complement to Joshua Kimmich in the midfield at the beginning of the year, and Pavlovic with his amazing vision, Toni Kroos-like distribution, I would say, and that's, I'm not saying that lightly. Pavlovic started the year so strong, way back when Vincent Kompany called him the most important player on the team. So if that says anything, there you go. Unfortunately, Pavlovic has dealt with a broken collarbone, a consistent string of illnesses, and he just hasn't been the same since then when he's played, currently ill. So, I'm giving him a 7. He hasn't looked bad after coming back from injury, but he clearly is not where he was at the beginning of the year. Moving on now to Leon Goretzka, I'm giving Goretzka a 7.5 because, wow, what a turnaround this season for Goretzka. If you'll remember, over the summer, the club bosses told the guy, hey, pack your bags, get on the nearest flight out of Munich. You are not in the club's plans for the future. We don't want you here. See you later, man. And Leon said, you know what, I'm going to stay and fight for my spot. I'm going to keep my head down. I'm not going to really talk to the media. I'm not going to say anything about this very public shaming, I guess you can say, and this public treatment from the club, telling him to leave. So yeah, Goretzka comes in and just performs solidly. Whenever he's been called upon, Goretzka has performed solidly this season. So really shout out to him, 7.5. Again, he hasn't completely blown me away, but he's been so solid in a really rough situation. So it even sounds like at the moment the club might not be so keen on selling him anymore because of how well he's performed. Hey, he's back in the German national team and playing great too. So Leon Goretzka silencing the haters. He's certainly still got a lot of haters out there, but has been solid all year long when he's been called upon. And finally, we have Joshua Kimmich there in the midfield, a 10. I think Kimmich might be my only 10 so far. Certainly so far, but I think Kimmich might be my only 10 at this point in the season. Joshua Kimmich, really, what can you say about the guy that we haven't said on almost every episode? He, I think, is just the most important player to this team because of how well he controls the flow of the game, how well he, how well he leads that midfield, and everything runs through him. Really the heartbeat of this team, the soul of this team. Extremely intense, a natural-born leader, a great guy to have in your locker room, a great guy to have in terms of availability. He's been, he missed one match because he got injured, and outside of that has played 90 minutes every other match. The guy is almost superhuman. He's basically a psychopath when it comes to playing 90 minutes every match. I actually think he should rest a little bit more because you cannot be tired at all at this point in the season. You got to put your best foot forward, and Kimmich obviously is that best foot forward for this Bayern Munich side. Another turnaround story. He obviously was not used well by Thomas Tuchel, who did not like the guy, but under Vincent Kompany, he is certainly turning things around, and I'm so glad he signed a contract extension as well to be Bayern Munich's next captain going forward. Joshua Kimmich, 10 out of 10. All right, moving on to rating this attacking group of players. Starting off with Mathys Tel. I'm giving him a 5. I know he's on loan right now to Tottenham, trying to tear it up in the Premier League there, where I think he started off all right, but, has not made a lot of noise since and clearly could be doing better. Unfortunate because he didn't seem to fit in with Vincent Kompany's system after doing so well last season, playing that joker role, coming in as a super sub, and just lighting things up. This year, he's kind of caught in between that striker and that left wing position, and he just hadn't seemed to work out. I wouldn't say he played bad necessarily when he played, but he is taking a step backwards in his development, and that kills me to say because I love the guy. Tel was one of my favorite players last year, so we'll see what happens. We'll see if he ends up going to Tottenham permanently or what his Bayern Munich story ends up being. But, Tel is a great kid. He loves the club, and it is a bummer to see how he's been doing this year. I think the company could have used him a little bit better. Certainly, I don't think he was that much worse than Coman, Gnabry on that left side. So it would have been nice to see Tel a little bit more, but we are seeing, some of that veteran presence and a lot of that defensive ability come through with Coman and Gnabry. So I don't want to just sound like they've been doing horrible either, but Gnabry I'm giving a 5.5. He started off the year so strong. And then really just fell off, was dealing with some injuries and whatnot, but has not made a splash really since the first couple months of the season when he was on fire, looking like the Gnabry of old. So bummer for him, bummer for the team that Gnabry is falling off. But I think, he is another one of those guys who you get what you get with him, and that's an up-and-down player who, when he's on, looks like he could be one of the better wingers in the world, and when he's off, he's almost completely irrelevant and completely invisible. So Serge Gnabry, I mentioned the same with Coman. I like how he tracks back and plays defense. I like the leadership that he has and the locker room presence that he is, but his time at Bayern Munich might be coming to an end, and the same could be said about Kingsley Coman, who I'm giving a 6 because Coman started off the season slower, almost the inverse of Gnabry, but he's really finding his footing now, and I think while he is never going to be the best crosser in the world, he's never going to be the best scorer in the world, he can still take on a guy one-on-one and burn him. He's clearly important to Kompany's system. Kompany seems to favor Coman pretty often at the left wing. maybe because of how good he is at tracking back and playing defense and overlapping with Alphonso Davies. I think Coman is somebody who understands his role, but yeah, his time as well might be ending at Bayern Munich. So again, Coman and Gnabry have been influential in the club's history, but right now I don't think they're producing at the level that we need them to. Leroy Sané, in my opinion, has been the best of the bunch at that mercurial, mediocre left wing position. I'm giving Leroy Sané a 7. I think he, while he has been up and down as well, I think he has the highest ceiling of those three and looks the most dangerous over there at the left wing. I see a lot of bursts where Sané looks, just incredibly dangerous and lethal, but he's not consistent enough at that spot. His contract is coming up too, and I would extend him for lower wages, I think. A shorter deal for lower wages if he truly is open to that, as reports are suggesting. I wouldn't start him every match, that's for sure, but I do think he can be useful on this team, especially if we kind of refresh that left wing position and maybe bring some new faces in. Anyways, Thomas Muller, I'm rating a 7 as well. Muller is unfortunately an afterthought on this Vincent Kompany team because I actually think he's been solid. When he's played, I thought he's always been solid, and there's been a lot of matches, especially against those low blocks, where I think his creativity could come in handy, but Kompany seems to refuse to play him. A lot of coaches, as of late, have refused to play Thomas Muller, and it is unfortunate because I think he still has some gas left in the tank. I think he still has something left to offer, but it doesn't seem like he's been given that chance. I don't think he can play 90 minutes every match. I don't think you can start him every match, but I do think there are times when Thomas Muller is the answer, really at that 10 role, and you could maybe bump out Musiala to the left wing. Again, just my thoughts there. I would like to see more of Thomas Muller, as I thought he's been solid this year when he's gotten the opportunity. Jamal Musiala, I'm giving an 8 out of 10. A solid season for Musiala, really through and through. He's also had his ups and downs. He's been, I think, dealing with the lingering effects of an illness for a while. He's had a stretch of matches now where he has not been at his best, clearly. But, he started off the year pretty strong and had long periods of time in the year when he was producing a ton. And even when he's not at his best, he's still really good. So I think that's just Jamal Musiala. He's got some room to develop, but he's clearly going to be one of the faces of this team going forward. Just a magician with the ball. It seems like the ball is tied to a string on his feet at times. He does dribble into defenders with his head down a little bit more than I would like, but there's so many times that he can just dribble through 7 defenders and break through everybody. So can you really fault him for that too much? Probably not. Michael Olise next up. I'm giving Olise an 8.5 out of 10. This guy has been really everything you could ask for and more since the transfer this summer. Dribbling, passing. He is so dangerous. He's clearly the best winger we have right now. He's lethal when he cuts in on that right-hand side, cuts in with his left foot and makes a cross or a shot. Completely lethal. So Michael Olise been great. The one downside is I don't think he always sees the field the best. I think he, he could link up with Kane a little bit better, and I think that's just because he's a young player. I think he's new to the team as well. I think he'll grow into that just fine, and I am really looking forward to seeing what he does going forward because Olise has been, just one of our best players overall. And finally, Harry Kane. I'm giving Harry Kane a 9 out of 10. I talked earlier in this episode when I was mentioning that he had 43 goals and assists, right? Like just astronomical numbers. I talked more about Kane there, so I won't go into heavy detail here. I also should mention, I don't think he gets the service that he could or arguably should have at Bayern Munich. I think a lot of Bayern's wingers and Jamal Musiala look to create for themselves versus feed a target man in the box like Kane. So, I think the team is playing better at this point together, but there were stretches of the season where I was so frustrated at the lack of service Kane was getting in the box. So, yeah, I mean, Kane's the man, and he is just the ultimate leader. Finally, the manager. I'm rating Vincent Kompany a 7.5 out of 10. I think he's done a very solid job as Bayern Munich's head coach so far in his first season. You know, I've talked about some of his faults. I've talked about some of his triumphs, if you will, and I think that, you know, so far he's done enough to warrant another season as head coach, especially if they win the league. I think he can do better, especially in some of these big matches tactically, but overall I think Kompany is really what Bayern Munich needs right now in terms of a leader, in terms of someone that the players like, in terms of someone with a positive playing style. He's really the inverse of Tuchel in a lot of ways. He doesn't really seem like a tactical genius or a tournament coach necessarily, but I think he's just a solid leader steering the ship into the future for Bayern Munich, and I think that's what they need at the moment. And I think if you give him some time, you know, good things will continue to come, and I think he'll be able to grow as a coach, and I think the team could really grow around him and do some beautiful things. Let's move into predictions here, because before the season, during each of these State of the Season addresses, I talk about my predictions from before the year and kind of update them, provide a little bit more color, shall we say, to these predictions. Before the season, I predicted that Bayern Munich would be back on top of the Bundesliga and win that trophy, and I still see things that way. I still see Bayern Munich winning the trophy this year, although I do think Leverkusen is going to make it close. I think it's going to be tight at the end of the year here, but I ultimately do think Bayern Munich's experience and leadership will just come through, and they will win that trophy. The DFB Pokal, we all know Bayern Munich lost to Bayer Leverkusen. I already talked about that. Neuer's red card. The team kind of got unlucky, playing better than Leverkusen, but still losing 0-1. I predicted an early exit at the beginning of the season, and, you know, they made it to the round of 16, so it is what it is there. Not much else to say, but the UCL. Beginning of the year, I predicted Bayern to lose to Real Madrid wherever we face them in the UCL. And then I kind of thought that we would, you know, maybe get to the round of 16, maybe get to the quarters as I was getting further into the season and witnessing how we were playing in that competition. And now I think we're in a pretty solid spot. So I think at this point we can make it to the semis. I think we can beat Inter. It's not a given, that's for sure. Inter is a solid team. But if Bayern Munich plays like they did against Bayer Leverkusen, I think we will have a good shot at beating them. In the semis, it's likely we'll face Barcelona, and if you know anything about me, you know how much I'm a Hansi Flick fan, and that's going to be tough. I don't really know if I can make a prediction there, but I think that Barcelona actually might end up winning the UCL, so maybe that'll give you a little bit of a hint into where my head's at there, but I do think that Bayern Munich has a very good shot at winning the UCL, or I guess I'm a lot more optimistic about their Champions League prospects than I was maybe at the beginning of the year, maybe in the middle of the year, so hey, that's a good thing. But finally, before we end things here, I want to give my state of the Bundesliga. That's right, I want to go through the Bundesliga table and maybe give a little blip about each team and where I feel they're going to end up, how I feel their season's going, because I am a big fan of the Bundesliga. It's my favorite league in the world, and I watch, multiple Bundesliga matches a week. So here we go. Number 1, Bayern Munich. I think they're going to win the league. I said that before. I think Bayern Munich is going to win the league, but I do think it won't be super easy. I think Leverkusen will hold on to that second spot. It's pretty much a two-horse race at this point between Bayer Leverkusen and Bayern Munich. I think Leverkusen will make it tough, but I think ultimately Bayern Munich will prevail. 3, we have Mainz. Really the shock of the season so far, if you ask me. Bo Henriksen is a great coach. I really love his coaching philosophy. I really like a few of those guys on Mainz. Burkhardt is a great striker. Amiri, they have a lot of good players. And Mainz, I love how they play. They have a solid defense. They're not too aggressive, but they're definitely not boring, and they're definitely not, top heavy on that defensive side. I mentioned Burkhardt and Amiri, some very quality attacking players. So I just think they're doing about as good as they can. I think they're actually going to finish in the top 5, and I think they might finish 4th or 5th. I'll put it that way. Frankfurt, 4th place right now, 45 points as well. Man, Frankfurt really has not recovered from the loss of Omar Marmoush, and when you have a player that good, how could you recover from that? But I do think Frankfurt is still an overall super solid team. They're one of my favorite teams in the league. Hugo Ekitike, I think, is an awesome player. Frankfurt has that mix of young and old players that's really good to have, and I think they'll kind of end up in that 3rd, 4th, 5th spot as well. 5th place, you have Leipzig with 42 points. Red Bull Leipzig, they're just one of those teams who has a really talented roster and probably should finish around 5th as well, but maybe isn't making the most of their talent. You could say they have one of the most talented squads in the Bundesliga. I would say Leipzig, Dortmund, Bayern, and Leverkusen probably have the best squads in terms of like player by player. So, there you go, Leipzig. 6th place, we have Freiburg, 42 points. Freiburg is just a solid team, and they're one of those teams that is maybe punching a little bit above their weight, but I do think they're going to finish in that spot around 6th or 7th. And I could say the same about Gladbach. They're in 7th with 40 points. Both of these teams are probably punching a little bit above their weight, but they've just had solid seasons. Wolfsburg in 8th place with 38 points, and Augsburg in 9th place with 38 points as well. Wolfsburg is a team that I love to watch. They're a team under Ralph Hasenhüttl who are just kind of flying high. I would say they're an attacking team. They're fun to watch, and they're playing as a team very well because they're also probably punching a little bit above their weight, but you can see that they're all bought into the vision, and they're all fighting hard. So on their day, they can really compete with anybody. And Augsburg in 9th place, like I mentioned. Augsburg is a team that is surprising me. I had them finishing way lower, and I feel like every week I have them finishing lower, or I have them losing and they end up drawing or winning, because I just look at their roster and I don't think they should be competing with the top teams, but they really do. And like I said, they always surprise me. So Augsburg, as of late, has actually been on this tear where they've been conceding almost nothing every match. 2025, since the new year, in the Rückrunde, they've just been on an absolute tear. I think they've conceded the fewest goals, maybe Bayern, but it's either Augsburg or Bayern, and they're 1 and 2 with conceding the fewest goals this half of the year. So shout out to Augsburg. 10th place, we have Stuttgart, 37 points. And again, you can just see how close the table is with these teams, all kind of fighting for that European spot. Stuttgart should be doing better. They were decimated by injuries earlier in the year, but they're a little bit healthier now. And, I think Sebastian Hoeneß is a great coach. I do like him quite a bit. But Stuttgart is there with 37 points, and they really blew it last week to Leverkusen, so I'm a little bit heated with them at the moment. Stuttgart really, really bottled that game, and it's hard for me to look at them positively at the moment. So I will not say anything else about Stuttgart, but they should be doing a little bit better. Speaking of, 11th place, we have Dortmund, who is with 35th points, and this is an abysmal run of form for Dortmund. Their coaching crisis, they are now under Niko Kovac, and they fired Nuri Sahin earlier in the season. Dortmund is doing very well in the Champions League, obviously into the quarters, and they're maybe trying to pull off one of those runs like last year where they made it to the finals, but also did poor in the Bundesliga. So, again, Dortmund has too much talent to be sitting at 11th place in the Bundesliga. I think they're having a little bit of a crisis of identity because of, just coaching swaps. Last year they were a little bit more defensive, and then they're trying earlier this year with Nuri Sahin to play more offensive, more on the front foot, more of the modern style of football, and now they're back to Niko Kovac. I shouldn't say back to Kovac, but they're back to a little bit more of that defensive style, possession-based under Kovac. So we'll see how things turn out, but it is a lot of back and forth with Dortmund. 12th place, you got Werder Bremen with 33 points. I think that's right about where Bremen will be at the end of the year, in that 12th spot. I think they could be doing a little bit better. They could have been in that fight for Europe, but kind of trailed off a little bit as of late. Union Berlin up and down this year, 13th place with 27 points. Berlin started the year hot, and they were looking like one of the best defensive sides in the Bundesliga, but they just do not have that attacking firepower. Went on a really poor run of form, and fired their coach. I believe it was Bo Svensson at the beginning of the year. Now they got Stefan Baumgart, who is, doing a little bit better. They have been crawling out of that relegation battle, and it looks like they're going to stay up. As I said, they've been doing a little bit better lately, but Hoffenheim is sitting there in 14th place, and they've probably been the biggest disappointment this season. You could argue Dortmund or Stuttgart for sure, but Hoffenheim is sitting at 26 points, and they have been poor. I mean, they've just been poor. You look at their roster, and I see the talent on their roster, and I think they should be a lot higher in the league, but just not playing well as a team, and sitting there in 14th points. I do think they're going to pretty easily avoid relegation, though. 15th place, you got St. Pauli with 25 points. I hope St. Pauli avoids relegation. I love them. They are my second favorite club in the world outside of Bayern. Just a really radical club in terms of political activism and all that stuff. I really love the ethos around that club. I love Jackson Irvine as a player, and just really what they represent. So hope they stay up in the league, and I think they will. 16th place, we got Bochum with 20 points. They have looked a little bit better as of late under their new-ish coach, but they started off the season so poor. Have been a little bit better lately. Heidenheim in 17th place with 19 points. And Kiel in 18th place with 17 points. So Heidenheim is looking like they will be relegated, although I do love their story. Frank Schmidt, love their coach, with the team since they were in the 4th division, one of the smallest cities to have a team in the top tier of a major league, and they, rose up from the 4th tier with little to no money, especially compared to, the money that's just around there in global football today. Paul Varner, Bayern, Loney is on Heidenheim, and I love their story. I love their team, but I think they are going to be relegated, as well as Kiel. So that about wraps up the state of the season for the Bundesliga and this video as a whole. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for listening and watching this. Check out the podcast show with Jim and I, talking about Bayern and Chelsea, on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. There are video episodes now for the podcast show, and we are going to be just bringing you a ton of cool content going forward here as the season heats up. The 100 subscriber giveaway, being the tip of the iceberg. So subscribe for that, comment on that video to be part of it all. And I read all of our comments. I respond to all of our comments, and I would love to hear from you. I would love to have you here as part of this community. So thank you again for listening. Thank you for subscribing and watching. And Mia San Mia forever.